We have reconvened with all members present. Austria Bailey is excused. She is recovering from surgery. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome. As I was mentioning before, we have a big crowd here today because we've got some great presentations to go through and some oaths to administer. And before I forget, I just request that everyone, at least through the greeting part, this is an open meeting, which means you can come and go as you please, but if you can stay through all the presentations and then leave, that's fine. I'm not encouraging you to all leave after the presentations. You're more than welcome to stay for our discussions, which will include budget information. We're starting that process early, as you will see shortly, and we'll be announcing the budget schedule. So we are going to attack this in a very quick and expeditious method so we can really work hard on having the best possible budget. And today we will be talking about the capital budget. And as I mentioned, Austria Bailey is not here as she recovers from surgery. We expect to have her calling in at the next council meeting, and then we hope to see her in person in February. But with the way Austria approaches taking care of herself, maybe even sooner than that. Also, our borough administrator, Ray Cody, is still recovering from a slip on the ice, and we also look for his quick recovery and back to his seat. So in the interim, Jim Burnett has got the helm there. I want to note that a former borough employee, Len Taylor, he was our zoning officer for many years, died this past weekend. There will be a memorial service on his life on January 25th from 1 to 4 at the William Lieber Funeral Home in Chester. And anyone wants to make a donation in his name, the Chester First Aid Squad or the Foundation for Morristown Medical Center. Again, he was our zoning officer and he approached zoning with a passion. If anyone knew Len, you would have known his license plate, which was zoning. I also want to remind everyone that a week from today is Martin Luther King Day. And as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Each year, Americans across the country answer that question by coming together on the King holiday to serve their neighbors and communities. When Congress established Martin Luther King Day, it was decided it would be the only federal holiday observed as a national day of service, a day on, not a day off. So the Martin Luther King Day of Service is also part of the United We Serve, the President's national call for service initiatives. It calls for Americans from all walks of life to work together to provide solutions to our most pressing national problems. The Martin Luther King Day of Service empowers individuals, strengthens communities, and creates solutions to social problems, and moves us closer to Dr. King's vision of beloved community. Madison is always a great town for putting service back in and helping others, so I do ask you to consider doing that next Monday. And if you're looking for ideas to how to help others, you can go to www.jerseycares.org. That's jerseycares, one word, .org. So let's honor Martin Luther King by helping others. Library report. The Madison Public Library ended 2013 showing a 10% increase in borrowing of books, media, and by the library patrons, a total circulation of over 205,000 materials, including 142,000 books. DVDs, Blu-rays is the next most popular item with a circulation of 45,000. The museum passes funded by the Friends of the Library experienced a 93% increase over 2012. The consortium of Morris County Libraries will be introducing a new service for the patrons' enjoyment. Watch the link for Zinio, Z-I-N-I-O, which will appear on the website It will provide online access to many magazine titles. The magazines will be available for viewing on the most internet-enabled devices inside or outside the library. Each magazine is recreated page by page with full-color pictures. Also, programming for all ages is starting up again after the holiday break. Story times for preschoolers, as well as crafternoons, Lego Club, and other programs for older children are starting up this week. Tech Tuesdays, Wednesday night films, and a monthly book group and many other programs of interest to adults are scheduled throughout the winter. A new semester of mini courses jointly sponsored by the Friends of the Library and Drew University has been announced. Topics include Between the Wars, Music in the 1930s, The Poets of Tin Pan Alley, the Hebrew Bible, and the Religion of Ancient Israel. 2014 is New Jersey's 350th anniversary and Madison's 125th anniversary, so the library will be coming up with some exciting news on how local history department will handle that, so stay tuned. I want to recognize our employees for the month of January. Linda Sawyer, Sandra Emmerich, and Donna Carey for a smooth transition adjustment to work responsibilities when Linda took a new position in the purchasing department. Sandra moved to the finance department, and Donna Carey trained new employees to backfill in the water and light electric department. And also anniversaries for the month of January. 35th anniversary, Tom DiBiase in the Department of Public Works. So if you see Tom around, please congratulate him. That's January 22nd. And 30th anniversary for Frank Davis, also of DPW. And he celebrated that on January 3rd. And I'm going to come down below here and administer some oaths of office and present some certificates. Require some water for me. New Year's Day, a resolution was passed that authorized the hiring of 3 new police officers. So we will now conduct the oath of office for those officers. May I have Chris Williams please come forward? And do you have someone who wants to hold a Bible for you or anyone to? Chief, thank you. Left hand on the Bible, right hand in the air, and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Christopher James Williams,
Solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
impartially, and justly
and justly
perform all the duties
perform all the duties
of probationary police officer of the Borough of Madison
of probationary police officer
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
I further solemnly swear
I further solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith
and that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same
and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state
and in this state
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Congratulations and welcome to Madison. Nick Lunetta, please come on. Yeah, we're going to turn. Yeah, we're going to turn a little bit so we can get the. Right, that's right. Had your back to the camera, Chris. Sorry about that. Repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of probationary police officer for the Borough of Madison according to the best of my ability. I further solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and in this state under the authority of the people, so help me God. Congratulations. Congratulations. Mark Clapp. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Mark Lab,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly
and justly
perform all the duties
perform all the duties
of probationary police officer
of probationary police officer
for the Borough of
for
Madison
the Borough of Madison,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
I further solemnly
I
swear
further solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United
that
States
I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith
and I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same
and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established in the United
to
States
the governments established in the United States
and in this state
and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Just want to thank everyone for coming. This is a great night for the Madison Police Department. We're really happy tonight having these three wonderful candidates, and I'm expecting a lot from them. Thank you for all your support.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. I don't get to do this twice.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
May I have a motion for Resolution 33-2014, resolution of the Borough of Madison confirming the membership of Kenneth Sitch and Thomas Sitch in the Madison Hose Company Number 1.
I'll move that. I'll second it.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
May I have Kenneth Sitch please come up for your oath of office? And Chief Lou. Raise your right hand, left hand on the Bible. We're going to turn a little bit so we get a better angle here. Back up just a little bit there. There we go. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Kenneth,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of volunteer firefighter in Madison Hose Company Number 1. Volunteer firefighter in Madison Hose Company Number 1. According to the best of my ability. I further solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey. And I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and in this state under the authority of the people, so help me God. Congratulations. And Thomasich. Yep. Oh, so another one coming up in the ranks. Left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Thomas Stitch,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties
all the duties
of volunteer firefighter in Madison Hose Company Number 1.
of volunteer fire company
In Madison Hose Company Number 1.
in
Okay, don't worry. I get to do this all the time, and it's the first time. Yes, that's it. According to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
I further solemnly swear
I further solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I support the
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
Constitution of the State of New
and that I will bear true faith
Jersey, and I will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments
and to the government
established in the United States
established in the United States
and in this state
and in this state
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations. As I mentioned, it's a special day as we swear in 3 new police officers and 2 more volunteer firefighters. And we often want to recognize the success of people in Madison. And in our midst today, we have the field hockey team and several of the coaches. So can the field hockey team please come forward? And we'll have to make a lot of space for you. And I've got a lot more certificates here than okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think with the fire department here, if you brought all 70, we might have to evacuate. So I appreciate. So we'll go through the names fairly quickly and figure out who's here. But I want to recognize success, but also want to point out the success of the class of 1974, because we have 2 graduates of the class of 1974 right here, myself and Anne Marie. So congratulations. And if you do the math, you'll know we have our 20th class reunion coming up this year. So let me read this. I won't read all of them. I'll read the first one. The mayor and council hereby congratulate the members of the Madison High School girls hockey field hockey team for achievement in winning the Morris County Championship and the NJAC Independence Division Championship. These accomplishments require extraordinary, outstanding teamwork, dedication, and perseverance, We commend the team members for their commitment in reaching these goals, and we recognize head coach Anne-Marie Davies for her leadership in training and coaching and the dedication and achievements of those outstanding athletes who have brought pride to the Borough of Madison. In testimony of our appreciation, I hereon to set the official seal of the Borough of Madison. We also have up here two other coaches, Clarissa Sacco and Victoria Sacco, who was class of 2005 and played field hockey for Brown. All right, so welcome back and thank you. All right, Abby Chaporian. Yep. I'm going to read these very quickly just so we can recognize everyone, and even though they're not here. Katie Battaglia. Hello, Katie. Tell your mother I said hello. Bryn Taylor. Bryn, keep that in the right hand. Maeve Byrne. Crosby Cap. Amanda De Silva. Elizabeth Turnbull. Catherine Gotch. Benton. Tara Bradley. Like Golden Globes, accepting for it. Tiffany Cecere. Lauren Taylor. Samantha Blount. Joseph, takes a lot of players to make a successful program, right? Michelle Montagna. Oh. Kira Mobley. Sophie Smith. Skylar Oates. Caitlin De Silva. Caroline Turnbull. Caitlin Smith. Carolyn Fassett. Alyssa Blount. Arlene O'Connell. Making sure you deliver all these, too. Emma Tickner. Carrie Ann Murphy. Claire Shannon. Emma Yost. Stephanie Delavia. Gabby Fuchs. Emily Flam. So congratulations, you represented Madison very well.
Oh, Lord. Well, we'd like to thank you for showing up tonight and supporting us. This is a great group of young athletes, and we ended up with a 21-1 record. We had a great season, a rough ending, and a double overtime loss to Shore Regional. But these players are ranked number 5th in the state, and so proud of them. And absolutely, we love to represent Madison. So thank you very much.
Now, if you, as I said, you're welcome to stay, but now we're going to get to the business that matters. So if you want to.
Go ahead.
Oh, well. Just a little closer.
Put a door in the back.
Take a short recess.
What do I say about the chambers? Just
We'll have to
just
stall.
walk outside.
How are you? Good.
It's nice seeing you. Good luck.
So our screen is taking a beating. We're gonna be able to see this. That's the one floor. They should have put screens on either side and just shot it both ways.
There are a lot of things they could have done differently. Didn't happen.
Part of it was like there was a certain amount of resistance from the trustees about what you could or couldn't do here.
Just still is.
There, guys.
It's a great building, but don't confuse yourself by thinking you own it.
Geraldine would be very unhappy. Then.
Make some peppers
got it. Mr. Cody missed you tonight. He'll be so disappointed. He'll be so disappointed that he didn't see you. I heard you went to see him in the hospital. I heard.
It took me a while to get here. Oh.
Then I walk in.
They were trying to. They were trying to
Son
hide
number
it.
3.
You get it?
Not yet. We gotta wait.
How are you?
One non-firefighter.
Got the email. There's a pair of twins, only one of the two.
Tonight.
Their younger brothers.
You know what? I was like, it just really touched me. You mind? You mind? No?
Okay.
Do you?
The cat in your back.
Most of the people here are here because
We're going to get back to the matters at hand, and everyone that's still here will get a gold star for staying. We're going to try to get the crowd to move away. We cannot close the doors completely.
A lot of people there. It's okay. It's okay. It's a nice night for them. Uh-oh.
All right, for reports from committees. Health, Mr. Landrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. Flu shots are still available through the Health Department. You can get them by calling the Health Department and speaking to a nurse there. The number is 973-593-3079. Now, in addition, if you cannot afford the vaccine, you can contact Marlene Dolan for a free voucher that will be available through the New Jersey Department of Health program. Also, as a reminder, they want to tell you that children who are in school must have the vaccine. Animal licensing, all dogs and cats must be licensed in Madison each year, and it needs to be done by January 31st, or you'll be get hit with a late fee, and all rabies vaccines must be valid through October 31st of the year of renewal. Business licensing, they want to send out a reminder that all retail food establishments and businesses regulated under the Health Department must be licensed in Madison each year with a late fee imposed after January 31st. And finally, the Health Department now provides vaccines through the New Jersey Vaccine for Adults program. This program allows those who are uninsured or underinsured to receive vaccines such as meningitis, Zostafax, hepatitis A and B. Anyone interested in these vaccines should contact the Health Department. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Public Works and Engineering, Mr. Catanello.
Thank you, Mayor. DPW would like to remind residents that they are currently picking up Christmas trees at the curb every day and will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. They have also begun filling in potholes. February 15th, 2013, the DPW yard will be open for yard waste collection, drop-off between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. We will also be discussing some incremental staffing for the DPW that is long overdue. So hopefully we'll begin the process to add this incremental staff shortly. We'll hear about that a little bit later. That's it, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Utilities, Ms. Vitale.
Thank you, Mayor. The electric department, probably about a week ago, there was a pad-mounted transformer that was just outside the senior citizens housing building at Chateau Thierry. And it needed to be replaced, which created a problem for the seniors because there was no electricity. I just want to say this is probably Madison at its finest coming together. Every single one of these departments came together and made sure that those seniors were comfortable throughout those couple of days. God bless Mike Piano. He found a new transformer, and that's not an easy thing to do. While he was looking for one to replace that transformer, his men just went to work and prepared the pad mount to make sure that it just went in. So there was a little disruption in some of their living, but not to a great extent. So yeah, the fire department helping to make sure that the emergency generators were working. David Maines was there every day to make sure that the seniors were okay. So It was just a great effort on everybody's part. Also, they installed temporary overhead transformers and cables to service Buttonheim Drive neighborhood due to a failure of underground primary voltage cables. So the new work is going to proceed when the weather allows. And then, if that wasn't enough for them to do, they removed the Christmas decorations in the tree from Waverly Place. So that got done. I want to read an email that was sent from Louis DeRosa. I hope I don't embarrass Mike. I think Mike is here. But as you know, there was a very serious fire up on Midwood this past week. And another good effort by all of the people that work for this borough, just coming together and helping each other. So Louis DeRosa, who is chief of the fire department, wrote this to Mike, and it said, "Hello, Mike. Just wanted to say thank you to you and your department for the quick and efficient response to yesterday's fire at 25 Midwood. I cannot say this enough, that we in Madison are so lucky to have our own electric utility. The speed in which your department got to the scene and disconnected power to the residents was simply amazing. Please pass on a big thanks to you and your guys for a job well done." And that just shows DPW was there, helping out as well. And I've just been seeing this more and more, all of these departments coming together. So that's it's a wonderful thing happening here in Madison. We have a report from the Water Department. The Madison tank inspection has been delayed. Apparently, there's an antenna on the tank that has to be moved out of the way. There was a very serious water main break at Madison Plaza on the fire line. So, you know, I believe all the businesses are now open, which is, you know, really great thing for all of them, but the repairs are still in progress. They are waiting for a second bid on Well E standby power. The meters and new installations on rebuilt homes continues in the repair of the old ones. They've had lots of utility markouts for broken gas and water during the cold snap. They have maintenance of oil filters at the treatment plants they're working on, minor repair of old heating units at Well C and Well D, and of course all of the end of the year reports to DEP. The water testing is ongoing, and testing for the stage 2 THM and HHA for chlorine byproducts has started. And that's all, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Wolkowitz, can you cover both public safety and finance?
Prepared to do that. Thank you,
Thank
Mayor. As starting off with the public safety report, Project Community Pride has asked me to tell you that year-to-date they have 7 referrals. It's a wonderful service, and it's an indication of how important it is to our community. The 2 primary social workers, Lara Shaligian and Bridget Kelly, went to a training session on self-injury last week, which unfortunately is something they see among some of our children in junior and high school levels. And as well, they alluded to a session which I had the pleasure of attending, a Project Community Pride Symposium, in which approximately 50 people who have some stake in that operation, whether as people who work for it or people who are somehow affiliated, came together to talk about the future of the organization. It was a very productive and good meeting. On the fire department side, Councilwoman Vitale mentioned the fire at 22 Edgewood Road. Indeed, as well, there were 2 others. Our fire department has unfortunately been off to a very busy start. One, I misspoke, was actually not a fire, and that's the Sages Pages event. But our fire department was involved, and I don't think it's a problem to reiterate what Councilwoman Vitale said, which showed the cooperation of several of our departments in making a bad situation as good as possible and resolving it very quickly. In a similar vein, there was a fire January 9th at approximately 1:30 in the afternoon at 12 Midwood Terrace. It's a home that's truly one of the grander homes in Madison in terms of size and appearance, an older home. And the fire was on the 3rd floor and described by the chief as a stubborn fire, which is to say that not only did they have fire damage, but they had a lot of water damage. The aid, though, that came to bear on that situation were fire departments from Florham Park, Chatham Township, Morristown, Cedar Knolls, Whippany, Morris Plains, and Green Village Fire Departments. So there certainly is a high level of cooperation among our neighbors. And as well, our own DPW was there. It was a very cold day, and they had to contend with ice and salting the area. We had the ambulance corps in place, the electric department, water department. It was truly an effort on everyone's part. The sad thing is, of course, that the building sustained a serious amount of damage. As for the police department, they asked, rather than my talk about the last week or two, that I tell you some of the statistics of their performance in 2013. And I'll start out by telling you a number that I'm not quite sure what to make of, but they responded to 30,308 calls for service, which I thought was interesting in a community of under 16,000 people that we had so many, but so it is. There were 416 motor vehicle crashes, which I think is a number we ought to work on. Better than one a day in a town our size seems awfully high to me. There were 4,000 motor vehicle stops, 3,000 summonses, so if any of you got one, don't feel too badly, you had a lot of company, and 1,400 radar stops. So there was very active year. They also had 221 suspicious incidents, 317 pertaining to motor vehicles, and they had arrests of, I had that somewhere here, 208 arrests over the course of the last year. So needless to say, our police department's a very busy and active department. Now, if I may, I'll turn to the area I'm more used to, the finance and borough clerk report. And actually, I won't spend much time on that because most of it will be covered in the course of this meeting. This year, we are underway, and this year we're starting out talking about capital as, in effect, an intro to the budget, because the capital improvement fund, as you'll see, will be quite large if we satisfy all the requests that are being made, and in some sense will drive a lot of the discussion that will be ongoing after that, pertaining to the various aspects of the budget and how they'll fall into place. So there are many drivers to a budget, but certainly this year capital improvement will be a significant one. As well, we wanted to be very open about the entire process, as I think we are in the past, have been in the past, but to facilitate that, we're going to be discussing a calendar which will include a town hall meeting, and so I'd encourage all of you to come. Almost every single meeting will be public, and so please attend as many as you can. And if you have any comments that you would like to get to us, please get them to us, and earlier is better, regarding the budget or any aspect of it or any questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And Community Affairs, Mr. Rowe.
Thank you. First, I thought I'd just start with a quick personal report. I was able to attend the League of Municipalities convention last year and sit in on a lot of very interesting seminars. I was also able this past weekend to attend the League's orientation for newly elected members. In December, I was able to meet with most of the department heads and plan to sit down before the end of the month with the few I've missed. But I'd like to thank all those managers for their time, and also Teresa Del Vecchio for setting them all up for me. In terms of community affairs, the Chamber of Commerce, I attended their first meeting of the year last week to introduce myself. They reviewed their programs for last year, especially all the things they did for the holiday season. They will be having their annual holiday party tomorrow evening at Rocco's at 6 p.m. All of us are invited. There is a fee at the door, $25. The Senior Citizen Advisory Committee, I also attended their first meeting last week. They'd like to report on a few year-end totals for participation in their programs. 8,327 people participated in weekly activities. over 7,800 people service, including the van, and one-time events, almost 1,800. They did note that their van usage has increased by 33% year over year, and they attribute this significant increase to the new van that was put in service. The Downtown Development Committee and the Recreation Advisory Committees, I'll be meeting with this week and next week when they have their first meetings of the year. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Well, we welcome you officially on January 1. Now this is your first real meeting, so we're both from big families, so we know when you, at Thanksgiving, you go from that small table with the kids up to the big table. So welcome to the big table.
Got that?
No, I was not referring to the table in another part of town. I was referring to having to sit at the side of the room here for the.
Okay, thank
so
you.
Just to
Thanks for
clarify,
clarifying that.
there are multiple big tables in this town. Could be in trouble. I have an addendum to the Finance and Clerk's report that clerk just handed me. A reminder that, as in every year, we have 2 council seats that are up for election, and petitions are available in the clerk's office and are due back by March 31st. And you can also find out, depending on which party, how many signatures you need. Thank you. Any communications and petitions?
None received, Mayor.
All right, this is the first of 2 invitations for discussion. As is always the case, this is limited to items on the agenda discussions and any resolutions that are listed for introduction. I mean, any resolutions that are on the consent agenda. There are no ordinances that are being introduced nor hearings today. So the agenda discussions are the budget schedule, the capital budget, and the bylaws review committee. And I'll remind you, as far as the budgets of discussions, if you're concerned that you have to state something before the discussion, there'll be many opportunities over the next couple of months to ask questions and share your thoughts. So is there anyone in the audience that wants to comment on any of the 3 agenda items or resolutions? Please step forward, state your name, your address, write the same on the clipboard, and then keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Sam.
Just a couple of things, Mary. The resolution 42, tax appeals. What is the situation? How much is that? Can you explain what the?
Yep, go ahead.
Hi, Sam. That tax appeal is for the mall that has the Quick Check and Five Guys in it. It's a 2-year settlement where the appraised value was dropped a small amount for 2011 and 2012. The total net impact to the Borough of Madison is $16,000.
It's all done.
It's done, yes.
Yeah. Mayor, if I may, and this, not to disrespect anything that happened tonight, but you know, I've been in Madison all my life, and then years ago it was nice to. The cops, most of them lived in Madison, and these 3 gentlemen that just were sworn in, I know they're going to do a great job and everything, but how many people applied for this job? And that's one question. And is there any local Madison kids that try to get this job? And what's the criteria of how do you hire a cop? I mean, you know, can you explain that? Because like I said, in the old days, it was nice to see local cops. All the cops were local. You know, they knew your father. They knew you know, they knew the streets, and it created a nice atmosphere. The local guys. Is there? Could you explain to me how that works? How many cops applied and all that?
Yeah, I mean these are officers being hired from the police academy, the Morris County Police Academy. The other thing too, in terms of what you're probably referring to, is many years ago, a lot of towns had ordinances in place that basically gave a right of first refusal or right of preference to people who lived in a certain town. Those have been basically struck out. Unless you're in Newark or Jersey City, large urban areas that have a lot of diversity, most of the suburban municipalities that had those types of ordinances have faced litigation from various groups, ACLU, NAACP, etc. So those have basically been outlawed. So you can't have a preference for living in Madison. But there's a whole process, an ordinance that's in place, the chief utilizes. They score people, they interview. So it's a pretty involved process, so they're making sure that they're selecting the best candidate for the job, regardless of where he or she lives.
And I would just add, Sam, that the previous hire that we, police officer that we hired just before this just recently moved to Madison. So they're obviously going to become that much more connected to the community.
So, do I understand that? In other words, the academy is the one who decides, they're the ones who recommend these, who we hire?
No, the academy, you cannot be a police officer until you've graduated from the academy.
And not local kids, none of us, none of the kids?
They can enroll in the academy if they so desire. And that's their desire. They do it, they pay for it themselves. But these folks have gone through it, they paid for it themselves, and, you know, it's a benefit to the borough to hire people who have done the training themselves. Because if you hire somebody right, you know, off the street and then send them to the academy, you put them on your payroll, you pay for the health benefits for the entire 6 months they're in the academy. So there's a benefit for hiring people who've gone through the academy on their own dime.
All right, thanks. Like I said, no disrespect for the three,
no,
I'm just
no.
saying that in the old days, it was nice that they knew your own man, and they sort of gave you a break once in a while. They said, hello to you.
Anyone else wishing to comment on items on the, Tim? Happy New Year.
Tim Harrington, 2 Cross Gates. I'd also like to add to the report on the performance of the fire and police department in Edgewood last night, which was not yet included. They were outstanding, and it was close enough that the Snoop was down there watching, but they did a first-class job.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to be heard? Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting, and we move on to the agenda discussions. First one is the municipal budget schedule, 2014 municipal budget schedule. I'll step through this. Ben Wolkowitz and I, along with Jim, worked on this schedule, and the council members have the memo that was distributed, and we want to just hopefully confirm these dates. Some are dates for meeting anyway. I'll remind the public that we will post this schedule, and since it goes over virtually a 3-month period into April, that is a caveat that it's subject to change as we go through, but we hopefully will stick to this. So tonight you'll see an introduction to capital budget, and then on our next regular council meeting, 2 weeks from tonight, the council members will get what we call affectionately the Black Book, our big detailed budget book, and there'll be a presentation on the municipal budget summary. So this is the budget put together by administration of the borough. This is our CFO, our borough administrator, and assistant administrator. We are hoping to do a town hall meeting on February 1st, and so that's we'll stop right there and see how council availability for the 1st, if that works. This would be, I would envision a 9 o'clock Saturday morning, probably start at 8:30 with just a little coffee and cookies, and go right for the town hall meeting. There won't be any official business nor discussions by the council, so I don't necessarily need to see that we need to have 100%, but more that are there to observe would be good. Are we good? Is that a?
I'm busy until about 10 a.m. on the 1st.
We can push it to 10, and we'll start the coffee and cookies at 9:30, and we'll start the official meeting at 10. And okay. And then we're looking at the first Monday in February, which is I think for most of us an open meeting night. As far as a special council meeting, this would be the when we normally have the department heads present their budgets, their goals that were achieved past year, and what they're looking for in their budget for the coming year. Is that
February 3rd?
That is February 3rd. Yep. 7 o'clock. If that. So we'll do it. We'll start regular time for us, but it'll be an hour earlier for the public. That will be a 7 o'clock meeting. There will not be any executive session, so we'll go right into that. February 10th is a regular council meeting, so we will continue budget discussions and also have a review of the materials that have been distributed. The 24th, another regular meeting. The goal would be to finalize the budget at that point, so we make the adjustments from when the budget was presented on the 27th. There'll be adjustments over that next month. March 10th, we would introduce the budget, and April 12th, because it has to be at least 28 days after introduction, would be the final adoption of the budget. Pat?
I believe it's actually the 14th.
April 14th, we added to, yeah, thank you. I saw the email that corrected that, and I didn't correct it on my notes. So that regular meeting date, April 14th, would be budget adoption. All right, and will be other things for the public to look forward to, and some of this will be presented at the town hall meeting, and some of our other presentations will be a more of a closer look at the electric utility. As we do for the operating budget, look at electric utility that way. Projection of electric utility surpluses for the next, this year and next year. We're about to see our 5-year capital plan, and we'll also be presenting the 10-year historic capital appropriations, and then a schedule of amount transferred from electric utility to support operations and capital. And now unless there's anything else on our schedule, we will move on to our second discussion item, which is a capital budget. Jim?
Thank you, Mayor. Presentation is up on the screen here. This presentation will be available on RoseNet starting tomorrow, and appreciate it. As the Mayor mentioned, the goal this evening is to discuss capital first. This is a little bit different than the process we've had in the past. Has had capital often talked about last. The problem with that is when we have weather-related projects that aren't authorized until late March, early April, or April or May, it's a challenge for us to get those projects done and completed in warm weather. The next step in the process is that we would be finalizing this capital budget at the end of the budget cycle. So the Mayor talked about the introduction this evening, and then the Black Book on January 27th, and a municipal summary, the utility budget February 1st, the department heads February 3rd, February 10th, when we have the large first budget discussion there, we'll circle back to capital budget and make sure that we cover all the projects. Once the council has all the information in hand in terms of municipal operating surplus and municipal budget and electric utility surplus and performance with the new contract, open space, all the different items will be covered ahead of that, then we'll circle back for a final pass-through on capital budget. So with that, myself, Ray Cody, and Robert Califat, and the department heads pulled together a budget document and a capital budget document. With this budget document, our priorities were to give higher priority to projects that would likely have greater liability exposure if they were not addressed. An example of that would be sidewalks. If there's sidewalks that we know are an issue, or streets that we know are in such disrepair that are actually causing liability exposure to the Borough of Madison, then we would want to address those first. We also ranked higher priority projects that generated revenue to help for payback. The easiest example to that is the automated meters, where we believe the automated meters will generate additional revenue and help pay back. And that's not typical, obviously. If we buy a truck for DPW, that doesn't pay back. However, we did also rank a little bit higher items that increase the productivity of our staff, thus reducing operating costs and man hours. There's a few items, especially under Department of Public Works, some pieces of equipment that are going to really help David Maines, and so they're ranked in there. We probably won't get to the Department of Public Works budget this evening in terms of their capital request, but we do have, and I want to thank Mike Piano for being here, David Maines, and Bob Vogel, who helped tremendously in pulling this document together, and Nancy Damchek from the library. Our goal is to continue to refine the 5-year capital plan over the coming year, revisit it again in the fall, and get council prepared for 2015 even earlier than ever. So this evening, in the capital budget we're about to present, administration is recommending about a $3.5 million capital budget for 2014. It's important to note that over $5 million in capital requests were submitted. We're going to review historical capital appropriations, and this evening, we're going to ask council to consider approval of the road reconstruction budget now, so we can have it introduced January 27th, adopted in early February, and then Bob Vogel can get those bids out on the street, so that work on those critical roads can get done during the summer and not October, November, when the weather is not the best for paving. So with that, I want to just direct everyone to the screen here where it has historical capital appropriations. This document was included in the document that was distributed to council. It's a little bit been slightly modified than what was forwarded to you in that I removed athletic fields capital budgeting for the joint meeting and for open space. Ben, this was as we were talking about earlier today. So as you can see, the last 4 years, the town has been well under $2 million, with the exception of 2011, almost $2 million in capital appropriations. Traditionally, if you averaged these dollar amounts over the entire term, you would see that over the 14 years, we spent $3.9 million in average capital appropriation. And if you just carve out 10, 11, 12, and 13, where we were obviously underfunded, 2000 to 2008, we had an average of $4.7 million. So one of our goals, long-term goals that we're going to be pursuing, that administration is asking council to consider, is to have a more stable funding of capital, to not have a $9 million year, a $4 million year, then a $2 million year, but to look to attempt to benchmark it. And the public will see very soon that we have a very strong and well thought out 5-year plan. Our hope is to get to a 10-year plan, or at least have a 5-year plan and then know the big projects that are out there beyond 5 years. Are there any questions on this before we really jump into the good stuff?
One quick question, the total that's left, because I can't really see all of it, and it's not what's matching here. How much of that was borrowed money, and how much was it paid out of our various funds?
I'll get specifics on that, Pat, but in 2005, we had a major borrowing for, and in 2009, we had a major borrowing for the building here and for other real property and assets, and a large road reconstruction project, and for some fire equipment. So I'll get those specifics for you.
Okay, because I'd like to hear the average with the debt backed out. Sure. In other words, what we typically were able to pay for.
In cash.
In cash.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Provide that. Any other questions? Okay. So probably hard for everyone to read this, but this does mimic exactly what was submitted to council in the overall preliminary capital budget for 2014. I think it's page 5 of the document that I submitted to you over the weekend. It shows every department, what their request is, and goes out for a 5-year term. I consider this a working document. I think some of the departments have really gone over this with a fine-tooth comb: fire, police, library, and others. But there's some that we need to kind of circle back on. As you can see here, the red number shows $3.45 million for general capital as our total request for 2014. That obviously could potentially change as we talk later on in the budget cycle. But the 1.59 is for road reconstruction, and we'll go over that in a minute. But I wanted to make sure if there's any questions here this evening. I'd really like to focus in on road reconstruction and the engineering portion of the line items. As I said, David's here to answer questions, Nancy's here to answer questions. We probably won't get to electric utility or water utility other than at a very high level.
Ben?
Yeah, just a quick question. Recreation is left out, or it's
Well,
being funded by open space?
It's either being funded by open space, or we always have that as a placeholder, because last year it would have shown that there was a large capital project that ultimately was funded by open space. keep the departments that are in here. The one department that's not in here is the health department. The health department typically doesn't have large capital needs. They do have a need for a vehicle, but depending on some decisions that council makes over the next 60 days with this capital budget, specifically whether we move to advance the automated metering project. If we do that, ultimately, the number of vehicles we need for meter readers would be reduced, and those vehicles would be freed up for the health department. Yes, sir.
What's the difference between roads under Public Works and road reconstruction under engineering?
Excellent question. Roads and Parks is actually David's Parks and Roads Department, and that is the equipment that they need to
that's fine.
operate as
Okay.
opposed to building a road, which is what
Fair
Bob
enough.
Vogel has under his side.
Thank you.
And same with sanitary sewer. You see sanitary under two line items. One is really a capital budget that would more flow through David's, and another that would flow through engineering. Might make sense to merge those. I'm going to talk to Bob and Dave about that.
Or might be, pretty much everything under Public Works is equipment.
Is operate, yeah, is it?
Yes.
So put it in parentheses, so in the future, because they are different, I wouldn't want to merge them, but since they are projects versus equipment, so just put a parenthesis next to Public Works, so as the public sees that, they will know that what that is, equipment. Anything else on this slide? All right.
So in terms of potential funding for 2014, as I mentioned earlier, it's our hope that this evening there'll be some consensus to advance the road reconstruction projects, which are 1.6 million. That will not impact the municipal operating budget or the electric utility surplus in any way because we have available one-time funds. Council has talked in the past about dedicating general capital fund balance. We have 1.46 million there. FEMA money, Bob Lannigan did an excellent job getting FEMA money in. Some of that came in before the end of the year. That's available, $380,000, and the sale of property over on Bellow, over in the Bellow section of town for $462. So we have over $2.2 million worth of funds available to fund this. So we just didn't want you to think that we're going to be using 3.5 million. Where's that money going to be coming from?
And a reminder on FEMA, we are anticipating more money, but we cannot recognize money that is received this year until 2015.
So with that, I'm wondering if Bob Vogel would step forward, please. Is Bob Vogel here?
There he is.
Bob, do you want to talk about road reconstruction, please?
One question while Bob's coming up. How much more money do we expect to get from FEMA?
About 800,000.
And I guess it's an accounting reason we can't use the money this year, even though we receive it this year. Okay.
Yeah, we can certainly, if it comes this year, we can make decisions based, if we had other sources, knowing it could be replenished.
Thank you.
Maybe if we give you a wireless and, so you don't stand and.
Here.
Yeah. Where were you on April 8th? Sorry.
Oh, this is fun.
Okay, there you go, off to the side. Okay, that'll work. That's better. Except for you're blocking me.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, so as far as the road program is concerned, we normally break it up into road reconstruction projects, which are basically reconstructing the entire road section, which could be as much as 12 inches deep in certain areas in preparation for curbing and storm drainage and, potentially other utility work, sidewalks. It's basically a complete rehabilitation of a road or a construction of a road if new. It's fairly rare in Madison to actually have a road where we need to construct it new, obviously, because they're all fairly well established already. But the road reconstruction projects are significantly more expensive. It's a significant upgrade to the road. And generally, once it's complete, allows that road to be maintenance-free for a good period of time, and certainly low maintenance for an extended period of time. In essence, a lot of the roads that are reconstructed can be milled and overlaid, which is a far less expensive process, multiple times before they have to be reconstructed again. So you're out 50, 60 years in a lot of ways for a reconstruction project, or with a mill and overlay, you're 15 to 20. And so we've divided it into two sections of priority streets. One is for road reconstruction, and the other is for mill and overlay program. And again, the mill and overlay is far more cost effective. The reconstruction is far more
of a rebuild of the entire street, and a far larger improvement than a mill and overlay project would be. And so basically our goals for this year were to take the roads that have been severely affected with utility work over the past, at this point, we're getting 3 or 4 years of road surfaces which have been put off in terms of their reconstruction based on utility work that was done for a number of reasons. Right now we've established a package of roads which is North Street, Pine Tree, Durwood, Fletcher, Academy, Belmont, and Vinton, which is a fairly large package of roads, which we've been looking to reconstruct for the past 2 or 3 years and haven't had the opportunity to. And so the residents that are on those roads, I'm sure you've heard from many of them, particularly in areas like Academy. So they've been, again, very politely reminding us that we can't leave those things go, and it should be our highest priority for this coming year. So in fact, we are addressing that issue. And the package of roads affects all the streets that were affected by water main and gas main replacement over the past 3 or 4 years. And so it's really going to be a very visible upgrade to the borough's road infrastructure very early in the season. It's our hope if we can get through the budgeting and appropriations process quickly. And so that completes our 2014 road reconstruction program for the borough. And we've gone through the estimates. Staff has prepared the plans and specifications. They are bid ready at this stage of the game. We need to schedule a capital project review committee early in the year, and hopefully in January. Hopefully in a couple of weeks we can pull that together. And also we want to coordinate with the strategic planning committee to make sure that the capital is everything that everyone expects, not only for the short term but for the long term, and then we can move on to those construction projects in early spring and complete them midsummer. So that is the perspective on the first year of that 5-year program at this stage.
I have 2 questions. First, as it pertains to North Street, so none of that money is available from the previous encumbrances for work on the pump station, I assume?
No, as a matter of fact, one of the reasons North Street was put off, as you may recall, is that we had a bunch of force main projects that had to be accomplished. And so I didn't want to pave the road and have to go back and dig up the road for a force main. So at this point, those force main projects are 100% complete, and there's a section of North Street was always split into 2 halves. Yeah. And so there's a section of North Street which is really in fairly good shape, has got nice curb and sidewalks to it. And then there's a section that's really seen the wear and tear of the years and hasn't been upgraded in a significant period of time. And so we're going to look at curbs, sidewalks, drainage improvements, and the road resurfacing in its entirety. So it's a fairly expensive project at the same time. But that's true. We still have money available for pump station upgrades, which is not being used for the road program.
Now, so the part of the road we're going to fix will not be affected negatively when we go and we spend the rest of that money for the pump station upgrade, correct?
Correct.
Fair enough. Now, the second question is, I see you have Wilson in 2015. If I'm not mistaken, Wilson is a little court off of Vinton. Wouldn't it make more sense to get it all done at one time as opposed to going back?
Budgetarily, I think we had a certain goal that we were looking for. I think, practically speaking, could be, Rob. I mean, I'd like to group the roads together as much as possible so we don't have a lot of construction traffic through recently redone roads. I can certainly take a look at what it would take in terms of time frame to prepare that and get it out to bid early. If not with the initial package, perhaps we could do it in the midsummer package. Don't know.
You know what I mean? It's just, and I've been on
Yeah,
Wilson, and there's that big sort of almost divot, for lack of a better word, right? At the intersection with Vinton.
It's ready for some curbing and some road resurfacing, and it would be nice to get it done at the same time as Vinton. It was never something that we had prepared previously, and so it would take a little bit of extra work on our department.
And I don't want to hold up Vinton or Academy or.
Yeah, we don't want to push Vinton back a year to get it with Wilson,
yeah.
but.
I mean, if there's the budget and it makes sense to get it all done, and, if we can save
Well, I'll tell
5
you
or
what,
10% of the 90 grand by having all the trucks there and everything, maybe it's worth it.
once we get 2 weeks out to our next meeting, I'll have a lot more detailed information on
Okay.
what it would take to complete Wilson at the same time.
Okay.
It's a great suggestion, and I think it should be one of our highest priorities once we're done with the actual utility impacted roads. Now, Vinton, of course, was torn apart with utility projects. Wilson was not.
Right.
So they have one leg up on the Vinton from that perspective.
Pat, you had your,
I assume we looked at our own sewer, water work, that this is not going to be anything that we're going to be ripping up in the near future, but have we spoken to PSE&G about their plans for any of these roads? I know when we did my neighborhood, PSE&G came in and first actually sleeved all the lines and then eventually replaced the whole service with a higher pressure line. And talking to the PSE&G guys, it sounded like they were going to be doing that on a regular basis throughout this area.
That may be the line in the field. I would say experience has taught me that I send public service a regular notice as to what projects we anticipate for the next 2 or 3 years. And getting a response from them, except in a crisis situation, which actually occurred on your street, has been relatively difficult to do. And so your entire neighborhood responded to a crisis situation where a gas line hit, and it was impossible by public service to repair their own gas line, and so they wound up replacing a good portion of it.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I have given them notice over a year ago on these roads, and the last 2 or 3 times we've met this past fall, I talked to their division chief and say, guys, I'm going to be doing it. Please check your records. If you need to get out there, get out there.
Yeah.
But have they? For some of them they have, but not all.
Yeah.
Okay? So if you'd like me to itemize which ones public service has actually done some main replacement on, I'll certainly.
I'm just wondering to make sure, a brand new road isn't ripped up a year or
very good
even
question.
5 years later. Thank you.
Ben and then Carmella.
Thank you. I have 2 brief questions. One is, I know that some of the streets that you have for 2014 have sidewalks and others don't. I'm assuming the ones that do, the price includes repairing the sidewalks if need be?
That's correct.
The ones who don't will remain without sidewalks?
That is correct.
Okay. And then just one other judgment issue. This is still a lot of work. I mean, even if we get a 2-month job, it's a lot going on. If we give you the 2 months, are you confident you could get it all done?
Won't be able to get the $1.6 million done in 2 months. No, we won't.
No. I mean during the course of 2014.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. The sooner we start to get the process rolling, the quicker the contractor will get done. And certainly, my full expectation is.
Microphone, Bob. Yeah, move, keep, so we can get it all recorded.
Certainly, my full expectation would be have that $1.6 million completed by the time school starts.
Fine.
And I think that's very conservative. I fully expect to have it done before then, Ben.
Good.
Carmella?
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about North Street, but I want to make an effort to say that there are some very bad roads here. We've heard about Academy, and we've heard about Belmont, and whatever. I mean, these are things that, regardless, we've got to make them top priority. I don't know exactly what has to happen on Wilson, if you need to do a full reconstruction for, I know it's a little tiny street, and 90,000 doesn't seem like that's what would do a complete reconstruction to me.
I agree.
So I'm a little wary about that. I'd like to see a better number for that before we make a decision. But I want to talk to you a little bit about North Street. One of the biggest problems that we've had is the inflow down to the pump station. We talked about this years ago about, people who just were, had water going into the sewer lines and whatever and overflowing. I mean, are you going to do some of that work? I know the sidewalks and whatever has been needed for at least 100 years on the top part of North Street. I know that. I spend a lot of time there. And the bottom portion has always looked very nice. So this is well beyond its life. But I also think at the same time that we have to take into consideration all of that extra flow of water. Are you doing anything about that? I mean, is that going to be water lines as well in the top part of North Street, that's going to mean they're not going to get paved this year. It'll be another year that they get paid?
As Robin mentioned, we do still have money available in the North Street Appropriations Ordinance.
Yeah.
That's for the pump station.
Right.
Okay? That's
Yeah.
separate and apart from the road project.
Yeah.
And so that money is continuing to be used to upgrade North Street Pump Station so that it has upgraded facilities to help deal with that problem, Carmela.
Okay.
I think the one thing that I still grapple with is our inability to have a comprehensive removal of some pumps and things like that from our sewer system,
Right.
which still becomes a capacity issue. And the capacity of that North Street pump station is a critical issue.
Absolutely.
So I really think that we need to spend as much time on the infiltration and inflow sources to the sanitary source system as we do upgrading the pump station itself. Now, we have done many things in the pump station over the past year and a half, but again, there's still a significant amount of work that remains at North Street, and we're trying to get through it as quickly as possible.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, the sump pump issue has always been a terrible, big issue. And I was hoping that by part of this reconstruction, that you'll eliminate some of that problem if you were going close to the sanitary sewers as well as the water.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I didn't know if, I mean, $435,000 is not a lot of money for that stretch when you think about the amount of sidewalk on both sides.
lot of sidewalk.
Yeah, it's a lot of sidewalk. It's a lot of block, coming all the way down and whatever, so.
So there are drainage improvements also on that road,
Yeah.
and I think the extended drainage improvements allow homeowners to deal with sump pumps more responsibly. If I have
Yeah.
storm drainage in the road, and they have someplace legitimate to discharge those sump pumps to, besides the sanitary sewer system, which
Right.
it never should have been connected to.
Right.
Then that provides an option to homeowners to discharge, and I think that's a very valuable
And that'll
thing.
help the pump station,
Correct.
absolutely.
And that should be, I think, standard to, any road we're doing stormwater work is notify the neighbors that it's time to, not
Right.
to say that they have an illegal sump pump, but we can help your sump pump work
Might as well
better,
tell them they do.
and by tying into the storm.
We absolutely will.
Bob?
Just have a quick one. I don't want to belabor too many points here. In my neighborhood, one of the big challenges was the water flow. Homes were being flooded and whatnot, and that's why it was put high on it. West and Kenny Streets, I'm looking at the dollar values there and when they're scheduled to be done. What I recall of those streets is they don't have curbing, and they are on a hill, as best as I can recall. Has any consideration been given to keeping them in 2015, maybe moving them to 2014? I don't know if any of the homes are being affected, and then as far as curbing and whatnot goes there.
My recollection of the extended capital budget is that for the most part, we replace curb if it's needed. We add curb if it's needed, but storm drainage generally is not reflected in these budgetary estimates. And so if we add storm drainage to it, it becomes something which I estimate the year of the project. And so as that detail becomes more obvious, and for those roads, it would be this year, I'd be doing those estimates.
Right.
Then you'll see perhaps a change in the budgetary request, and it's usually a change to the positive.
Yeah, that's what I was figuring. Okay, thank you.
One final question. This is really more of a 3-year capital plan. What happens in 17 and 18?
Well, two things. I was running out of room on that one page.
Okay.
To get your number of roads on there. And in year 5, I think one of the statements I made to Jim early on was that, we've done so many reconstructions over the past 10 years that we're getting to the place where we may actually be able not to reconstruct the road for a year or two and just do mill and overlay for a few years, which is a far more cost-effective way to move forward. And so while the reconstruction work you'll see tail off naturally, and it's not going to be zero, I guarantee you that, in year 2018. We'll see a tailing off the reconstruction work because we've invested a lot in it over the past decade or so or more, probably 15 years when it really comes down to it. And you'll see more mill and overlay work, which again is more cost effective long term.
Thank you.
And just another clarification, because I think it was Ben that asked the question, where there's sidewalks, they'll get repaired, and where there's no sidewalks, they won't get installed. Belmont is no sidewalks, if I recall correctly, yet it leads to the library, and there's a lot of long-term parking on the street. I think it would be an ideal spot for sidewalks. I know I also often have a minority opinion on the sidewalks because I want to do whatever I can to get people out of their cars and onto their feet. But I think that's something we should take a look at.
It's a difficult street, Mayor. Belmont has a lot of houses that are very close to the
So,
street
yep.
itself.
So, yeah, if it's not possible,
It's always possible.
it's one of the many streets I lived on in Madison, so it's
To actually accomplish it would be a really significant amount of work.
I just want to mention, Mayor, that North Pine Tree, Durwood, Fletcher, Academy, Belmont, and Vinton, as Bob said, these have plans that are fully drawn. Once we get it vetted by the Capital Projects Review Committee, we will be, and the various department heads one final time, we'll be ready to go out to bid with these. So if we come back with an introduction to authorize the appropriation of these funds at the end of January, and then finalize that authorization and approve that authorization in February, Bob, by that time, should be pretty much done with reviewing that, and we're ready to go. Adding other streets onto it, maybe Bob can add Wilson onto it, but he's probably not going to be able to add West or Kinney or any other streets like that to this. And Bob, do you want to talk about our goal of taking all of those streets together? And we've heard some people in the past ask, why don't we bid them together? That it's our goal to do that this time. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, it's a huge project for the borough. We expect one general contract for all of them, so you'll get top shelf contractor responding to this request for bid.
So this will be one single bid for all of these streets. The hope is to get a more major contractor to come in and do the project.
So does that mean they'd be doing one neighborhood at a time, sort of in phases? They'd start working on one, as soon as they finish sort of round one of the reconstruction, they'd move to the next neighborhood and so on?
Most contractors would be tempted to approach multiple roads and take one crew at a time. If they have 3 crews, they'd have one curb crew, then one drainage crew, then one sidewalk crew, and then the mill and overlay crew to finish things up. And I just don't want to let them stretch out too much. I mean, two roads open at the same time is enough for me. So I'm going to encourage through the specs to say, yes, you can do multiple roads at the same time, but I don't want all the roads affected all at once, because
we have to manage the project.
the job just becomes unmanageable. So, yeah, we'll be careful about that, and yes, we will allow them to do more than one road at once. However, they have to show that they have completed that one section of one road with one crew before they move on to the next.
Okay.
And just to reinforce my sidewalk thing, which the sneakers may have left the sidewalk already for Belmont, but as we look at future projects and look at that whole list, I don't think there's any road that doesn't have sidewalks that would need them, but I think we should make sure we do keep in mind whether it's designed so bicycles can go down a road better, or we can encourage people to walk. We should not lose track of that, but I don't, as I said, I don't see any roads on that list that need to fall in that category.
Mayor, I think, historically through traffic calming and now through the Complete Streets Committee, there's a vehicle there to channel or prioritize certain of those pedestrian or bicycle and pedestrian improvements for various streets. I don't recall Belmont coming up in the recent history, and so it wasn't designed in for this round, but I think it's a great suggestion, and fairly significant amount of work on Belmont as far as specifics, but I have no trouble putting sidewalks, as you know, throughout town, and unfortunately that requires a fairly broad and open process because not everyone feels that way.
Yep. Nice.
And if we revisit this discussion for 2015 roads in September, that's where a lot of that guidance can come, and we can get a little bit ahead of it. I do want to point out that we have Ridgedale Avenue North being accomplished in 2015, Ridgedale Avenue South being accomplished in 2016. We have submitted to the NJDOT for a grant for Ridgedale Avenue North. We anticipate that 50% of the listed amount will be covered. by that grant, or maybe more. DOP should respond to the first grant by April 2014, but we feel like we're not going to be able to get plans together for that road, do all these roads, and get that road done in time. Again, we don't want to be paving that road in September, October, November during the poor weather, so it's our plan to put that off until 2015 for that one section and 2016 for the other. I want to bring that to your attention because that means that road will not be in great shape for a few years. We're going to be talking to David Maines and his crew and Mike Giordano and the rest of them to make sure that that we do what we can to keep that road in as decent a shape as possible until the reconstruction occurs.
All right. Any other questions on this slide? All right. Thank you, Bob.
Other questions?
Is that it, Jim?
Well, why don't you stay there, Bob? Because we're going to talk for a few minutes just real quickly about milling and overlay. So we had put just two items of extreme importance. Bob wanted to do a little more milling and overlay, but from a budgetary standpoint, administration and CFO curved back on that a little bit, but we feel like we have to do division and that one section of Woodland from the very end towards Chatham.
Just also to head off, because I know Carmela's going to ask the question, about division. I bumped up the price a little bit in our division, which is participation with Chatham Township to begin with, Carmela. But I know that at one point you had asked for curbs and maybe a couple of extra catch basins along that road.
Right.
And so this number actually reflects that. So I would do that through the county cooperative or maybe a small change to our general contractor that's in town early in the spring. Try to upgrade division before we actually do the final mill and overlay, and I think that's it's a good approach.
But Chatham Borough still owns half of that,
Right.
Correct.
that road.
Yep.
So there's no cooperation with Chatham Borough?
no,
I
I
mean,
think
we got, I think, $10,000 the last
They've
time
committed,
you said.
yeah, they've committed about $15,000 to that project on one prior occasion, so I think we can get that again.
Okay.
And again, they aren't improving the road to the extent that we would, so they'll pay a little bit less.
Pat and then Bob?
Yeah, Union Hill appears on both the road reconstruction and then twice on the milling overlay. Is there a reason for that? Okay, and then I guess the same question for division. You also have Danforth listed on here. I'm assuming you're going to need to reach out to Florham Park to get a portion of that road covered by
A very
them?
small portion. Actually, most of that road is ours, Pat.
Well, the part above the road trucks is all ours. The part below, isn't it 50-50? Or is the line not in the middle of the road?
I've had an argument from both the county and Florham Park on that issue, so they're saying their tax map line is a little bit
Microphone.
different than ours. Pardon me?
Stay close to your microphone there. Sorry.
Okay, thanks.
I think Bob, I had in the queue.
Just a
Then we'll
quick
go to Ben and then Rob.
Just a quick comment. So the numbers we're looking at here is what we can expect to see going out forward, let's say 18, 19, 20. You know, what follow up what Pat was saying, you know, about a 5-year plan, because these roads have been substantially reconstructed. So now this is the kind of maintenance work that'll be done on it going forward.
That's correct.
Okay.
And again, we have a 20-year program that was initially done in 1996, Rob. And so we keep renewing that and looking back at it and updating it substantially every 5 years. But it was a tremendous basis for the municipality to get started prioritizing roads in a way that they hadn't done so before. And so I've relied back on that 1996 plan a number of times. The interesting part of that is that if you took the anticipated annual cost in $1996 and transferred them to today, I think the 1996 budget was $880,000. Today it's 1.75 times that much, so $1.5 million is what was anticipated by that original 1996 plan, which wasn't anywhere near as detailed as the plan that we have now. So yeah, it's been a great start.
Okay, Ben and then Rob.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up for a moment on division. You had mentioned Chatham Borough, you believe would be good for 15,000?
I do.
Is that street one half ours, one half theirs?
It is.
Yep.
So how come they're at 15 and we're at 50?
Well, the 15 would come off the 50 when we get it from them.
But it's basically, it's a low priority street for them because they have no residents on it.
So that's
And
really
it's
what's
a high,
an issue.
yeah,
Residents.
it's more
Higher for
important
us.
to us.
I'm not sure if the governing body recalls, but I think Ray had asked a couple times to do a share agreement with Chatham and actually had an agreement with Chatham to do it, but they didn't do it. And so you know. Well,
But they did help with Brook Lake, which is similar, where there's no residents on their side of Brook Lake.
Brook Lake's much
So,
better.
yep,
I mean,
so they
No,
did
that's
help.
The
true.
portion of Brook Lake was significantly upgraded.
Yeah,
Yep.
that is true. Thank you.
Okay, Rob?
If there are other roads that don't show up in either of these lists, I'm thinking of one or two that sustained particularly bad damage in Sandy, you know, Hillcrest, for example. Should we just talk offline and, okay.
Yep.
This is a work in progress. It's going to be continued to be refined over the coming days and weeks. So if you have particular projects you want us to go take a look, we're obviously going to go continue to monitor
But, you
the
know,
roads.
like,
and make
I think
sure.
that street lost all of its telephone poles and trees were ripped up and stuff. And
I think the two five-year plan documents that we have no more than 60 roads on them.
Okay.
And the borough has 200, so.
Okay.
It's a
Well,
small
I'll
snapshot
follow up
of
with
what-
you
what's going on.
offline, and
Right.
then you can share it with the council.
And our long-term goal is to expand this out and to have a stronger and more confident feel on what's happening the fourth and fifth year out, so residents can look at it and say, okay, looks like Baumgartner's gonna happen in 4 years. I feel good about that, and they know that it's on the list.
Yeah. But I would also qualify that because we know stuff happens, and so, you know, we will introduce an ordinance next week or next meeting to fund this year's round, and, you know, next year's we'll start working on those design as we get through this year, so we're ready to hit the ground running, but, you know, other things may happen, another Sandy may come along, which all of a sudden makes another road move up the list, so.
So the next items, we'll just keep going through these, Mayor, but from a detailed standpoint, you know, it's really more just a quick question and answer, and then Bob and I are gonna, and the other department heads are gonna refine these documents over the coming month, and then we'll circle back in February. So with the help of the Capital Project Budget Strategic Planning Committee, our long-term goals, and we'll circle back to the other departments in a moment, but I want to just talk about this. We have the Capital Budget Strategic Planning Committee, and our long-term goals to work with that committee and Bob Vogel and the other department heads to provide council more data and create a more structured process. As you can see, I think this is a little more structured than what we've done in a few years past, to publish a road and water main list so people understand, as we talked about, that they're on the list, to look at funding projects early in a budget cycle. We've talked about that, creating a manageable list of projects. So as Ben said, we feel comfortable we can do these projects on an annual basis, to minimize the large dollar fluctuations, 9 million, 4 million, 1 million, and to find long-term funding sources, and then to extend this plan out to 10 years to better handle larger projects. So when we have a fire truck or a building or a major cost and upgrade to the 911 system, other major costs that we have, we can accommodate that and absorb that and not have a major fluctuation or have to deal with that in a challenging way. So those are the kind of the longer term goals that some of them that I'm hoping that will work with that strategic planning committee on. With that, I've got all the other budgets here, and real quick, Bob, I'd love to have you come up if anybody has any questions. We've got all the other engineering, and then we'll have DPW and actually every capital budget item that we have listed in the packet that was sent to you will be available if you have any specific questions on it. Bob Vogel, do you want to come back? In case they have any stormwater questions. Here we have stormwater, just a few projects for this year, Bob?
Okay, so, for this year, the Barden and Keep Street projects are small drainage replacements that have been on our list of capital requests for the past 2 or 3 years. It's not a big package of stormwater requests. I truly believe that stormwater is going to be a very big issue for us over the next 5 years. And we have some very big projects that are designed and bid ready and ready to go. But for this year, we have 2 small storm drainage line replacements, which are on the list. And I think that's mostly budgetary from our perspective. As we get further down into 2015 and 2016, you start seeing some of the more interesting projects like the Below Woods Culvert, which with Councilman Landrigan, we have been looking for hazard mitigation grant funding for, and they've given us a positive response on that so far. So we'll continue that application process and hopefully get a good portion of that $350,000 back from the federal government if we are fortunate. Again, most of them, what are on the list here are fairly small drainage improvements, isolated drainage improvements that don't go along with a road reconstruction or any other road work in the street.
Yeah, Elmer Box culvert collapse seems to be the most expensive on the list. Is there any grant funding available for that, do you think? Or?
We've applied for several. We haven't gotten a positive response on Elmer Street for some reason. It was in our initial round of hazard mitigation grant requests, but they preferred the Below Woods project because of the number of stabilization issues which are attractive to them. The Madison Common impacts were attractive to them because it affected a lot of residents in a very close proximity. So unfortunately the Elmer Street project hasn't ranked that highly. However, the one good bright light is that we had a meeting with the county last year on Central Avenue, and they want to do something similar to relieve the pressure at the Housing Authority property where there was some significant flooding during the last hurricane event, or we had a flash flood in the meantime. And we met out with the county engineer, and they had indicated that they would put on their capital request assistance for the Borough of Madison to run down Elmer Street itself instead of through the backyards where the existing culvert is. So it's kind of a complex parallel, but by the same token, I'm optimistic about it because it will alleviate short-term serious problem that we have on Central Avenue.
And if they come through with that money before 2000, let's say they get their act together and they say, yeah, we're ready to go this year, will we have to advance the payment schedule for us, or you think?
Characteristically, no. The characteristic of the county would require us to contract directly with the general contractor, and they would respond to the general contractor's payment request through us. Yeah, which is terrific.
Carmella?
Yeah, I just want to talk to you a little bit about the Bella Woods culvert. You have like about 400,000. Now, one of the considerations is that Whippany River Watershed has considered putting that project in their 513 grant application. So, just bear in mind that I don't let them forget that. Okay. So,
No, and I think
now if we get that opportunity, wouldn't that help us with the Elmer Box culvert collapse? I mean, we might be able to move that up a little bit, or do we still have to wait for that grant? Is that?
It's
don't
logical
understand.
to me. I don't think in a practical vein, or since you're dealing with the federal government and they're very targeted about one project, one funding, one completion, I don't think they're very flexible about multiple projects on that front. I mean, it's a good argument, and I'm happy to make it. However, I think the watershed grant is perfect for the overbank, and the hazard mitigation grant is perfect for the stream itself and the culverts. I think they're complementary projects. They should work together, and hopefully the funding will come to us at the same time, in the same time frame, so that we can do not only the channel itself, but the overbanks, and do a real nice project with Below Woods, which, as you know, it's a park that needs attention.
Very seriously.
It'll be a huge improvement for us. But Elmer Street, no, we're just going to have to continue to go with separate applications and try to get flood assistance.
So you have stream cleaning in there too, and I've had a couple of conversations with people about Spring Garden starting to get really messy again, filled with lots of stuff, and people actually throwing garbage into it and whatever. So, is that something that maybe we could kind of move up, do you think, in 2014? Because what happened down at Spring Garden is, that, it just started, the sides of the garden, of that stream just started to erode.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
So we've had several good stabilization projects along the Spring Garden Brook, which have had outside funding participation in the past. We have a current project which we would be able to submit for DEP projects as soon as we get a funding partner or we get the funds approved. So yes, as I indicated earlier, there seems to be, with the last several significant rainfalls and storm events that we've had, it's identified a great deal of stressed stormwater infrastructure for the borough of Madison. And I do believe it's somewhere where we're going to have to pay some particular capital attention to in the years to come, similar to the capital attention that was paid to in the pump stations for the sanitary sewer system over the past several years.
So the stream cleaning refers to what in the year 2015?
That's a normal desnagging process that David would hire a subcontract to do for him.
That would be sections of Spring Garden?
Yeah.
Sections of Spring Garden, yeah.
And what else? What else, David? What to clean? Right.
While David's coming up, just to shift a little bit, the culvert, we still, Elmer Street box culvert, do we still have issues with easements that we need to resolve?
Yes.
Yes, okay, the answer is yes.
Unless we can put it into the street,
Unless the county puts it in the street.
It's been on the shelf for a while, and I do believe we left that project off with a couple of easements.
Right, so we need either the county relief by going down the street, or we need to continue that. The other question is whether community development block grants might be, since that is probably in a census tract, that would make that neighborhood eligible.
Well, I was originally hoping that the county flood assistance would help us because of the impact of the benefit to Central Avenue, but that didn't work either, Mayor. So, yeah, we'll just have to keep applying.
Keep playing those angles. Right. All right, so David, on the stream cleaning, what?
So the Spring Garden Brook over on Spring Garden there, we are having a lot of complications with trees falling over from all the water erosion in that, from all the, between Irene and all the heavy rainstorms, it has been doing a lot of eroding, the trees are falling down, and what we do as a borough, we always take and clean that, remove that tree. Was ever blocking the water, we get it removed. We don't do a lot of maintenance work to it, not unless it's where Bob has it, we have to go into it. If he has money to do it, we don't do a maintenance program on the trees there.
Are there ever times that the crew's out there and they notice that there might be yard waste being dumped by?
Yes, we have found a lot of material inside the brook, and then it all ends up down into the bridge right where the Rosedale baseball field is.
Yeah, my main question with that is if you see it at the source, do they follow through to make sure that that source is cut off? Okay.
Can you identify where all that stuff is coming from then?
When it happens, I knock right on the person's front door.
Okay.
That's what I do.
That's the answer I wanted. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Jim?
I just wanted to say in short answer to Carmela, to answer your question, yes, this is a project that can be done in 2014. And Bob and David are happy to see if we can make that happen. And then as we look at this, whether Bellow Woods happens in 2016 or the Elmer Culvert happens in 2017 and 18, the main point is to get these on our radar screen, first of all, so we understand these are pretty major stormwater system projects that need to be out there. Also encourage you, if anyone is interested, to take a tour with Bob Vogel. These are highly complex issues that need to be resolved with a fair amount of engineering. So if you want to satisfy your inner engineer and get out to some of these projects and see it, they're very complex, they're very interesting, and it's important for council to, if you want to have the opportunity to tour these sites.
All right, anything else on stormwater? All right.
Don't go anywhere, Bob. Sanitary sewer, and David can stay there. You just want to talk real quickly about pump station repairs?
Yes. So the capital request for 2014 on Candlewood Treadwell West End are supplementary requests to appropriations that we've made previously. As we've gotten into the projects, not surprisingly, we've had certain extras identified through the design process and through our quotes and estimates with contractors. And so I believe we will need supplementary funding to close out the pump stations that we started several years ago. But it's not a huge amount. It's a fairly modest amount, and I'll be real happy if we can get them all done this year. I'd like to get those pump stations all cleaned up and out of the way so we can get concentrating on stormwater issues instead of sanitary sewer issues for a little while.
Want to talk about lining, something we haven't done in the last few years, but something we want to get back to doing?
Well, we had, if you recall, probably going back 5 years now, we had a significant lining project that was done in the North Street sewer service area. Very successful, great company, Entech Lining Systems came in, but it was approximately, I think it was $1 million project back then. So it really got us off to a great start on lining, and we were very impressed with the technology, the contractor, and the way he went about things. And I do believe it's actually helped us as far as infiltration and inflow issues as well, actually reducing flow to the plant during significant storm events. So a lot of positive outcome from that lining process. So in the ensuing years, there's been several other priority segments that have been identified through field personnel such as Vito Lupino, who works for David, and they've listed out a number of sections of pipe which are distressed. So these $100,000 appropriations address annually a limited lining project for various critical sanitary sewer pipelines throughout the borough on various streets, and in some cases through easements and backyards and things like that that are difficult to get to. So that's the nature of the project. We have the bid specs. They're very easy to amend and adjust, and so again, if we can wind up with the same contract that we had the last time we had a significant project, we'd be very fortunate, and I think the borough would be well served with those additional lining projects, and they are very attractive as compared to digging the entire sanitary sewer up and replacing it from the surface.
Yep. And so the lining, which I do remember for a while, we had an annual amount. It's asset preservation, as you said, that if you don't do it, it could collapse, and it's far more costly. The other thing is we're shifting through the joint meeting from right now, the allocation on how we calculate which town pays what to the for the sewer treatment plant is based on how much water is used in the town, not how much water is put into the sanitary system. So we are shifting to
An actual monitoring process.
right, so that we will be charged by what goes to the sewer treatment plant. So if we can keep the stormwater out of it through lining and other work and educating residents about not having sump pumps go into the sanitary sewer, it will have a payback. Yep. Any other, Carmella?
I want to just go down. First of all, I don't know what MH/main lining means. Dumb
Manhole
question,
and main.
Manhole, okay.
Yeah.
But one line down, and probably David knows this, about the miscellaneous video and the main repairs. We did a lot of video of, some of our lines, which I felt was always very important because it kind of tells you, what, some of this stuff I don't have to tell you guys. I mean, it's pretty old underneath there. So, but I always wondered why we didn't do more of it. I know David didn't have the men or the facilities to do it, but hopefully more of that can be done, in the next couple of years. Because I think it's like really important to know what you're dealing with, before you have a collapse on Christmas Day and whatever. I often wondered why we don't have, usually we have to borrow that equipment, right, David? From, are we still borrowing it from?
Yes, we do
Yeah.
borrow some video equipment that's on wheels. See, we have a push camera. I did purchase a push camera for us to check some sewer lines and that. But when you want to really check, say, a 250-foot line,
Right.
you have to have a motorized camera that goes right down the line. And that's where we do have a. Very expensive. Oh, they are very expensive.
Yes,
And
right.
I've had where we have National Water Main that comes in and does, when we see we have a problem, we have them come in and they give us a video, and they give us the video and everything. And that's where Bob and I, like, when we did the storm culvert over there by Crestwood. We found out what was wrong there, and then we just found out where the problem was, and then we figured out what kind of lining we were gonna do. We did, that was a concrete lining that we did there. The other ones, we do a cured in place. So that's what we do use that
So
there.
those
And sometimes
machines,
we've
yeah.
even used Chatham Borough one time, came in with their camera, with a shared service that we work with them.
They're pretty expensive
Oh,
equipment.
yes, they're very expensive.
And difficult to maintain.
Yes.
Really?
So, oh,
Okay.
yes, they are there, and then you have to have your own, you have to have, it's gotta be set up on a whole truck. You gotta have
Yeah.
a truck, cameras, and all video equipment and everything there.
So what's $25,000 going to get you this year, David? Video?
25,000, it all depends what we're gonna be, what we're going to TV. That gets us a start there to go for doing regular, say, an 8-inch line, we can do a couple thousand feet. That's what we
For
can do. Because on an
25,000.
average day, with using the video, using National Water Main, we're gonna be averaging anywhere between $3,500 to $4,000 a day. That's what we average.
It's expensive.
That's what it costs.
For just a few, for
For
100
two guys,
feet?
for,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
do a
wow.
video.
Okay.
Both options are expensive, both are necessary.
Yeah.
There were a number of years where we had actually done capital appropriations because they would video before or after a road program. And we can reinitiate that process if you feel it's valuable. I personally feel as though we have miles and miles of video and very little actual lining or fixing that's been done as a result of that video. So I'd almost rather identify it and fix it all at the same time.
Right.
So that's kind of where we've been heading recently.
Yeah, certainly if there's not a plan to fix it. Well,
Yeah, why
so,
video? Yeah.
Yep. Anything else on sanitary? All right, flowing right along.
Parking lots and sidewalk improvements. Two items that the administration added on were Hartley Dodge sidewalk repairs, and the Downtown Development Commission had requested sidewalk repairs be done. Both of these are really to mitigate and limit the borough's liability. We've had more and more trip and falls in the downtown, had a recent one on Kings Road in front of Green Village Road that heaved up due to a tree that was there, so ultimately it was the borough's responsibility for that. And so we want to at least start putting it in the minds of council and putting some money towards sidewalk repair. Then we have a major issue in Waverly Green parking lot with some collapse of drainage there and the need to repave that. And then the Kirby East Street lot is, while that has a fairly high cost for the use that the borough has of that lot, a significant portion, I believe almost 80% of it's going to be coming back to us from the YMCA, who has a shared service arrangement with that particular lot. So, but again, it's something that maybe you don't typically think of on a capital project, but it's important for us to be thinking long-term what's going to happen to parking lots and sidewalks.
Okay, any questions on this slide? As a reminder, again, we'll be revisiting these as it all sinks in. The road one is the one we're going to be moving forward.
Okay, roads and parks. David, do you want to talk just briefly about the two? I know you wanted more. I apologize. I had to scale it back a little bit, but you want to talk about the two appropriation items that we have here for 2014?
Parks here, but we have a loader that we're going to be replacing there. The machine I have is over 20 years old, and it's used quite frequently, and it's getting where it's costing more to repair it than keep it running. So that's why I had to put in for this piece of equipment here. It's a machine that we use for everything. We use it for snow removal, loading trucks, debris. We got all kinds of attachments that go with it too. It's not just a bucket, it's a claw. We put the claw on it. We also have a 2-in-1 bucket on it. That's what that there is for. And then the other storage, the pole barn that I'm requesting $30,000 for, that is for storing all of our equipment in, and that's down in DPW. The storage facility we have right now they've got 3 container boxes down there, and they're all rusted out and rotted out because they just placed them right on the ground. And this building I am asking for there is a 40 by 80 foot building, all put together, installed and everything.
And in terms of the additional information and the expansion of this, these documents, David's going to be pulling together actual trucks, when they were purchased, current mileage, and alike. So as you see, replace small truck, replace large truck, you'll have more detailed information as to that truck is 18 years old and has X number of miles on it. What's important, and again, to get to a more programmatic approach, is if a truck has a 15-year life cycle, I'm just going to say 15, David would probably say 10, but if a truck has a 15-year life cycle and we have 5 big trucks, we should really get to a point where we're replacing a big truck every 3 years. That way, we're getting on a proper cycle. We're not in a situation where we are right now. We've really put off purchasing vehicles. So probably in the next 4 or 5 years, we'll probably have to purchase more than programmatically we'd like to, but eventually we want to get to a more balanced approach with the vehicles, because we know they only last a certain period of time, and it's something we can easily project out, much more so than roads or sanitary sewer issues. Questions?
And just the one that you have up there is different than what we have at the Civic Center.
Oh, yeah, I did move the Civic Center to,
Yeah, there was a.
Does that get moved?
I
Did that
just
get
moved
moved?
that to buildings, because
Okay.
it didn't make any sense to be in parks.
That's what didn't make sense
Good
there,
catch,
so. Bob?
David, would it be safe to say that the storms that we've had of late, Hurricane Irene and Sandy, beat up your equipment pretty good?
Oh, yes, between them two there, really kind of beat up the equipment a lot. That it did, because we were running them every which way, and we were putting them through a lot of rigorous work.
All righty, thank you.
The next slide, very, very short. I would almost call this obviously a placeholder. Obviously, just putting a dollar amount and having it repeat on an annual basis is not as the type of detail that we want, but there's always, when it comes to sanitary sewer, continued need for station upgrades and for new pumps. So we'll get more refined information on that as we circle back. The next is, David, you want to talk about the mechanics, the need for the lift replacement when it was installed, and the air ventilator?
Yes, in the mechanics department, I just had a vehicle lift inspection done about 3 weeks ago, and the heavy-duty lift that we have in the garage is, well, it was installed in 1975, and we've got our shelf life out of it, but it's leaking a lot of oil, and the state will not certify it, and we have to replace it. That's what it costs to replace the in-ground lift, and it's the heavy-duty lift. That's what it is. It's to lift up all the heavy trucks and that there, especially if they have a load on, you can't dump the truck. That's what it's for.
And so we'll correct that slide, which it was not installed in 1960, it was 1975 for that, which is still, as we learned earlier, that's from the year I graduated, that's 39 years ago.
Okay.
Sorry.
And David, the air ventilator real fast? Talk about the air ventilator.
And then later, then 2015, the air ventilator, we're gonna have to put an air ventilator in the vehicle garage, vehicle maintenance department, before using all the welding equipment and all the stuff like that to purify the air in that garage.
So it's possible that after these two major mechanic capital projects, that we may not have anything for another 3 years. So there could be particular categories or departments that don't have major capital requests for a period of time, but those are two important ones. Police department, the chief isn't here, but it's up here. You're welcome to take a look at it.
Yeah, I just
Oh,
want
I'm
to
sorry.
ask David a question about the lift replacement. When you do this lift replacement, a few years back, you had to put in certain drainage and whatever, for washing down the trucks and.
Yes, we did. We
Is
put
that
in the
going to be
oil
all
water-
included? Because.
No, that's, the
that-
oil water separator is all done. That's not in the mechanics
Right, so
garage.
that doesn't affect this at all?
No, it does not affect
Okay.
that at all, no.
All right, I didn't know if you needed more money. I was going to try and give you more money, David.
I'm happy with what they give me.
All right?
And just because it corresponds with the blue budget document that I gave you last week, we had the police department budget. The only thing that I would put on everyone's radar screen is that the police department does have a major desk upgrade due to the 911 system that they're projecting out in the 4th or 5th year. Obviously, we'll be talking to the chief of police about that and getting more details and information on that. And we have heard him mention that in the past. And some quotes here are to the penny, so it's only $1,900 for the surveillance equipment. It might look a little like it's a big number, but it's not. Same with the fire department. You can see the fire department here has, Chief Lou had talked about the need for, on an annual basis, to have a certain amount of money for turnout gear. So he's thoughtfully put that in on an annual basis. I think all of his other requests that are smaller are timed properly, and this is a very refined document. The one question is when council has the appetite and when the council and the town has the ability to procure the rescue truck. That's the 1995 rescue truck. The chief looks to have about a 10-year life cycle on vehicles. So you'll see in 2017 there's a replacement of a 2007 vehicle. Chief looks for a 10-year life cycle, but obviously council have plenty of opportunity to talk to him about that before those decisions are made. But I just wanted to bring those to your attention. Any questions?
All right.
Next is the library. Is Miss Nancy Adamczyk still here?
Yes.
You want to come forward, Nancy? A fairly detailed memo from Nancy was included in the council packet that was delivered this weekend. The library had submitted a document that had a request of $671,700 as a capital request. We spoke to Nancy and are looking to scale back on that dollar amount. The single most important item, and she has other people here willing to talk about it, Bill Van Ryzen and others, is the replacement of the HVAC system. The most telling point that Nancy and Tom brought to my attention and Ray's attention was the fact that last year they spent $30,000 just to keep that existing HVAC system going. They think $450,000 will replace the entire amount. Just seems like an awful lot of money, $30,000 just to kind of band-aid a bad system. So we have that down as a 2014. The administrators have that down as a 2014 capital budget item, and Nancy's here to answer any questions you may have. Bob?
Just a quick one. I understand the need to replace the HVAC. I also see the need to replace the roof. Because we had gone through that during Hurricane Irene. Would it make sense to do them together? Because the HVAC is located on the roof, isn't it?
Yes. I think the hope is to do the HVAC this year in preparation for roof later on. I don't know if Bill wants to add anything to that.
You would put it on, each unit get put on new curbs, and then as they do the roof, they'll integrate the new curbs into the new roof.
Right.
Okay. It's a little bit easier to work with a warranty than the other way around of, do the new roof.
So it'll be
and
kind
then
of done
come back and
concurrently,
change the
is
curbing.
what I'm gathering. Okay.
Right now, HVAC, pardon me, is our biggest need. Obviously,
Gotcha.
we've spent so much money. It's continuous problems, just day after day.
Okay.
Nancy, in your memo, you referenced the point that the library has other projects that you're hoping to fund through other sources, specifically some fundraising and other things like that. Do you want to just talk about that for a minute?
Well, we did our strategic plan back in 2012, and when, I'm sorry, I've got this cold business. When we got to 2013, we were hoping to start on some of these projects, but we were experiencing so many HVAC issues and realized that that really had to be addressed first because it made more sense. So what it looks like, if we can get all this funding for this year, pardon me, is that you very generously provided funding for the engineering study and design of a new system. So that's been completed. We have those designs. We would like to get started as soon as possible using some current ordinance money to repair the electric baseboard throughout the library, which will help. In order to install a new system in our center section, replacing the rooftop unit number 3, they need to get into the ductwork. So that's going to involve abating the ceiling in the lobby area. Pardon me. So we hope to do that this spring and prepare the bid documents and so forth so we can do an HVAC replacement in the fall of this year. As long as we are abating, pardon me, we're proposing that we abate in the picture book room also so we can get started on some of our refresh project. We would like to total, then we would do a whole new ceiling lighting system in the lobby as well as some other refurbishment. We're looking at this as a partnership. As I say, you've already given us some ordinance money. We hope we will get this capital budget request of $450,000. We have, pardon me, some capital funds within the library budget as well as our MPLI, Madison Public Library, Inc., funding that we can devote to this project. The Friends have already agreed to fund certain portions of this, and I think eventually, later this year, we will probably go out on a capital campaign to fund the rest of the strategic planning projects. So that's why we were looking at this as a partnership.
Nancy, you had in the memo that that capital campaign might be as large as $300,000.
That's our best estimate at the moment.
Questions?
Could I just add something?
Yep.
Go
and
ahead.
then-
No, you.
Please go ahead,
This
Ed.
is related. I was just going to say, we did put a request in. It made sense for us to do our parking lot, pave our parking lot at the same time Belmont was being done. And I know Jim and Ray did not recommend this funding, but I figured I would just mention it since you are talking about paving Belmont.
Rob?
So, in the past, we've spoken about abatement. Is there any more abatement you think that needs to be done outside of the 2015 project you have listed here and the other projects I believe you said you were going to self-fund?
There are certainly more ceilings of the same substance within the library. The board had made the decision that we would do them as any renovation or any issues arise. So there are none other scheduled at the moment. These are the
Do
only
we have a
ones scheduled.
cost estimate for those?
I don't have that off the top of my head. Do you, Tom?
Okay. Tom, I got it, sorry.
It's on TV.
Yep.
Several years ago, when we ended up in the tech services area, that's when we hired TTI, the abatement specialist, to take a look at. And I think you remember, Gary Ruckelshaus presented to this body a total plan if we were going to take a look at all the areas. And I think at that time we adopted the approach of, I think based on recommendations from other people and people that have similar issues, when you are undertaking to do anything that involves them, that's the time to deal with it as opposed to going and tackling. And I think we're just executing that same thing right now.
And this is all, as you've talked about this approach, this is asbestos and ceiling tiles and things like that they're intact. It doesn't pose a danger unless it gets damaged, and if you're doing renovations, obviously, then you need to address
We
it.
committed to at that point in time that we would have continual air monitoring. So we've been doing that several times a year where we bring the monitoring people to make sure that there are no issues that are involving something that we have to deal with right today.
Now,
I'll just point out on this particular chart, you may see areas over in here, we call it fresh projects. Those are the ones that we're thinking about when we're looking at our capital expenditures, try to put it all on one sheet of paper. And so those we're going to try to accelerate. That's what we're looking at for funding campaign. Same issue where we had like the picture book room. This is capital expenditure money. This is capital expenditure money. I think that Nancy mentioned we're going to use MPLI capital funds.
So then, just for my understanding, the total amount is not what you're asking the council for over the next 5 years? That's the total amount?
It's kind of a combination that
net
we
of
need
whatever,
to manage.
I see.
Yeah,
Oh,
we need to manage.
Very clear. Okay.
And so I think when we came back and talked to Jim and Bob, I think we were focusing on what are we looking for borough support.
Tom, I have a question about the HVAC system. One of the problems that you had a few years ago when we were terribly flooded and you had that terrible flood is there's units on the outside of the building and the water was coming down. And I think it was an expensive project, wasn't it, at that point, to move some of them or whatever? I'm just trying to remember what that was, hoping that you remember.
Irene was the very first one where we had the big insurance, where it was coming down from the hills from Pomeroy and Edgewood, et cetera, coming into the back, and it flooded the back of the library. We were concerned at that point in time, because we did have water damage which ended up being an insurance claim, which we did. It did not involve the HVAC.
Okay, but I thought there was some
There
kind of
was a big
units,
issue
weren't they?
about the generator.
Oh, the generator, okay.
Generator, which
I
is in
couldn't
the
remember
back,
what that was, yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
that's the reason why that's kind of on a question mark over there.
Okay, so-
Because the addition was, when
Yeah,
it
you need
originally-
to resolve that, though,
it-
yeah.
It should have been elevated.
Yes.
In case we have water, because that was the first thing that people observed. We lived through it, but it's still a continuing question. And then would the library function as a heating, backup if there are other, borough times when the library building itself could function as a backup facility?
Okay. Yeah, I remember it being a difficult problem for you. Might be something to move up. Think about.
And we are talking 5 separate units, and as this whole capital budget gets absorbed by us, and we have to make possibly some tough decisions, because right now we're talking about spending money, and we haven't really talked about funding very much, so that has to be put together.
I'd just be adverse, Mayor, if we didn't comment, Bob Vogel has been extremely helpful, because he brings a history with those projects, with the HVA system and the problems when they were originally installed, and which we're living with today. The existing units, the manufacturer doesn't exist anymore, and we're literally having to have the people try to build parts when we try to repair it. So it's just continuing to disintegrate.
And the advantage of having them all done at once is you have a crane on site for 5 units instead of, which is a costly item. You would end up with a single control system, as opposed to if you split it up, you'd have multiple control systems. But if we really didn't have money, we might have to make some tough decisions, but that 450 number becomes a larger number.
I think Bill could talk to you, because he has been working with Bob and the consulting engineer in terms of the estimates. And I don't think there's any question that, if they would say if we were going to do it, it should be done all as one project.
Yeah.
We get a more efficient system, the whole thing.
Yep, sorry.
Dan Risen, I'm on the Buildings and Grounds Committee. I joined the library board in January of this year, of last year. Yeah, there's no question that it will be a more efficient system in terms of energy use and managing the air within the entire building if it's all done at once. And there's no question that having a crane there, of course, you'll save the cost of the crane. And the control system is really a big issue, because, this system was done in the early 90s, and it's kind of like, it was in DOS in its first control system, and it's been upgraded to Windows, and it's at about Windows 3, I think, at this point. And so if we were to try and do it in pieces, it would be pretty difficult to manage. You would have 2 systems.
Yep. Any other questions? See if we can, because we're approaching 10:30, I think we can zip through the rest of these. Thank you very much for staying around.
Michael Piano is here. He has very light electric utility capital requests. I did add at the bottom, and I think this is for a good discussion during the budget process, the automated metering infrastructure, whether we're going to advance that or not. As you saw in the document that was submitted to you, we've kind of shifted tact a little bit here after meeting with Butler and meeting with Sussex Rural and hearing about their installation projects. The thought process would be to advance the electric side of it first. It's much easier to replace the electric meters, get all the metering data backhaul and all the other infrastructure in place first, and then slowly integrate the water utility afterwards. So you'll see between the two schedules that you have that the electric utility is first. That is one of those projects that does have a return. We're in the process of analyzing the amount of kilowatts that we bill in a year versus the amount of kilowatts that we purchase in the year, and the difference is significant enough. Even given the unmetered use, there's lights and street lights and other things like that that are unmetered in town, that we think it's going to be more firm data to show to council to prove that we think the replacement of the meters will have a net positive impact of revenue to the borough, where the project could be paid off in very short order. But with that, Michael's here if you have any questions.
Yeah, I think let's keep the questions to stuff on the top, because we will have a far more extensive discussion about the 650 for the next 3 years, because, as you said, we need to present more on that. Is anything for Mike on the basically $90,000 worth?
When you want to start with?
I'm just, if there's anything, I don't know if I feel obligated to ask you a question since you've been so good to stay here, but I think it's pretty straightforward. Any questions on the 3 items on the top for Mike? All right. Thank you for being willing to. Yep.
How easy was that?
Yep. Yep.
Water, David had put in for a backhoe again that is, will significantly increase his productivity, and new gen set at well E and well upgrades, and you'll see later on in 2016, 17, and 18, there's funding for the automated water meters. We don't have to talk about that now, but just so you know, there's a backhoe and some other major items on the water utility. Those get funded obviously out of the water utility revenues, not out of the municipal budget. So.
And plus, we did a rate adjustment for to fund the automated meters,
Right.
which will
Expires
next
at the end of next year.
Yep.
Correct.
All right. Thank you. And I think this is early January, and the earliest we've done it because, again, as we said at the start, a lot to absorb. But if we, just going back to the very start was the road construction. Bob will do some research as far as the impact on doing Wilson now as opposed to next year. Otherwise, we'll come up at our meeting in 2 weeks with the appropriations ordinance for the road projects for 2014. All right. Thank you very much. Council Bylaws Review Committee. This was last year. It's brought up that we need to visit our bylaws again, and so we put together a review committee. And as the process goes, the mayor suggests the committee and approved by the council, and my 3-member committee I would like to put forward, and we'll approve this under new business, would be Rob Catanello, Bob Landrigan, and Carmela Vitale. I would also, they'll be working diligently, making sure they get input from all of the council members. They'll be also working with Liz and Matt as far as the legalese behind the bylaws. Also, if you remember, a couple of years ago, I brought forward the idea of a code of conduct. Since it was first brought up, Matt has reviewed that, so I will share a red line version with the full council, but I will be asking the committee to take a look at that and how it can be addressed in the bylaws. I do see it as a standalone document that is addressed in the bylaws. Any other, as I look at this, it is just so happens to be that table there. So thank you for offering. Could only put 3 people on there. There were others that were willing to do it, and so I'm sure they will share their input. And now we move on to ordinance for hearing, which we have none. And invitation for discussion number 2, and this is when you may comment on anything that you feel appropriate. Again, state your name, your address, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Tim, come on back. And this may be something we will possibly address during the bylaws review, is whether we consolidate the 2 discussion periods.
Tim Harrington, 2 Cross Gates Road. What's happened with the sale of the Green Village School property?
That is still moving forward. The committee is actually meeting tomorrow, and we are working with several redevelopers and hope that the sale will come to fruition.
A time frame before June 30th?
I would certainly hope before June 30th, yes.
Second question, I took a look at the proposed new building where the old Jaguar dealership was. If you guys haven't looked at it, it's as ugly as the Walgreens supermarket presentation is. It's a travesty. As you know, I own commercial real estate. I can't believe that. On the budget, I recommend you have a consolidating sheet of all those things. When you add up all those numbers, the totals on each of the bottoms would be very useful.
We will have, yes.
Also, you might show 2013 actual versus what we budgeted to see how close we were. In terms of Prospect Street, ain't going to last, certainly from Hillside down to Keep Street to 2017. You're going to have to do some milling or something. That everybody in this town can tell you that.
Yeah,
Please.
I would agree.
And you might ask Mariana Holden if there's couldn't do something to get public service electric gas to a little more cooperation with the town, and we're a perfect example, which you could then apply to other towns. And Glenwild ain't going to last without a milling. And I didn't show that anywhere on there, but just take a trip across Glenwild and you'll see what I'm talking about. I'll let you go.
All right. Thank you very much, Jim, and welcome back. Good to have you back here again. Anyone else wishing to be heard? Hello, Mary Beth. Well.
Mary Beth Forte, 7 Academy Road. First, Happy New Year from my friends and I at Academy Road. Thank you also for the good detailed overview of the capital projects. I did have a couple questions on the presentation. One, if I listen to the urban legend that my neighbors give me, our road has been on the list for at least a decade or so. So my concern is considering that, and that the fact that I'm pretty sure at one of the last council meetings, Academy was listed as number 2 on the draft list. So my question is, why are we now on the bottom 30% of the list for 2014? And so that's question 1. Question 2 is, knowing that emergencies come up, Academy Road's kind of at the bottom of the list for 2014. Assuming budgets get approved and all goes according to the existing plan, what's the likelihood that Academy really will get taken care of and reconstructed in 2014?
So the tale of two lists. There is the planning list that it is nothing more than just a plan list that we try to project out 5 years, and as we mentioned, you know, a year out is a far better bet than 5 years out because things happen. So that's where Academy has been, is on that planning list. What happens once you move off that planning list to actually happening, step 1 is the ordinance is passed, and that will be introduced at the 27th, thank you, I've lost, it's after 10 o'clock, I can't do my calendar anymore. So that would be introduced at the 27th with a hearing on the second Monday in February, our first meeting in February, which is the 10th. And now, once that is approved at second hearing, that money is encumbered. It is, as to quote a former presidential candidate, it is put in a lockbox, so to speak. And so those projects then can go out to bid, and the whole process goes through. So I don't think there's any, you know, the order that was in there, you know, I joked with Mary Beth at the library meeting last week that in even years we go reverse alphabetical order, and so, but no, that's not what happens. Those roads are all together in no necessary priority order. It's just that is the 2014 idea for the project, and we've pretty much had consensus here, and so that's what will be coming back in the ordinance in 2 weeks.
If something happens and those, for whatever reason, don't get done, are they first on the list for 2015?
The money, unless the council takes action to unencumber the money is tied up for that project.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you.
And we, as I say, keep coming back. We enjoy having you here. Anyone else wishing to be heard?
Maureen Byrne, 49 Albright. I serve as the chairman of the Friends of the Madison Public Library, which is chiefly involved in funding projects at the Madison Public Library. And in 2012, at the behest of the mayor and council, the Friends and the trustees and the community went through a strategic plan initiative. It was very enlightening. We looked at all aspects of the library. We looked at the building, we looked at programming, we looked at how we could continue to serve the people of Madison well into the 21st century. And it has become very apparent over the last year that implementing the strategic plan is being held up by capital improvements that need to be made to the building, specifically the HVAC system. And while I understand that $450,000 is a lot of money, and it is tempting to replace one or two at a time, replacing all of them will allow us to go forward with a capital campaign and will allow us to address under other areas within the library that we can't address if we still have the HVAC system outstanding. So I understand that we sometimes have to make compromises and concessions, but I would ask this council to seriously consider replacing the HVAC system as a unit, because I think doing it in a piecemeal fashion is actually going to cost us more in the long run. Thank you.
And we have one more.
Mr. Vogel. Will they be considering, or is it a possibility for sidewalks to be installed at the end of Green Village Road heading towards Shun Pike? There currently are none. I know there was the list with the repairs and maintenance, but we don't even have any sidewalks. So I was just wondering if sidewalks is an option for that section of Green Village Road.
Green Village Road is a county road, so as it was just recently paved, that was completely done through the county. We did discuss to them, just as every road reconstruction project we do, because we are a more suburban area as opposed to like Harding Township, we requested even curbs to be incorporated into the reconstruction. And they said all we maintain is pavement to pavement, and everything else beyond that is on the town. So, it's certainly something we could, as we look at traffic calming and other things to look at. It is as I watch people walk to ShopRite or whatever, it's a scary situation.
My concern, more so than walking to ShopRite, is just this year my daughter's school bus stop was eliminated, and she's expected to walk to and from school. This is her way, going up Green Village Road onto Garfield and heading her way to the junior school. She's 12 years old, and I just feel that this is much too dangerous. We don't have a sidewalk, we don't have a shoulder, we don't have a bike path. And my concern is obviously first and foremost her safety. The sidewalks, I've been to several Board of Ed meetings. I've been to emailed with Dr. Rossi, and I've gotten nowhere since the beginning of the school year. Again, safety is my concern, and I just need something to be done. And if sidewalks is an option, that's why I wanted to ask Mr. Vogel. I didn't know if it was even to be considered. But she really needs to be safe, and this is a liability, because if something was to happen, I mean, this is ridiculous. She's only 12, and I'm very, very concerned, and I don't know what else to do to protect her, to get her there. The bus, she was bused last year. They did take it away this year. We were given no notification. 2 days prior to the school year, I did contact the Board of Ed for a bus schedule, and that's how I found out she wasn't going to be bused. So knowing that Green Village Road was just recently, the road work was done this summer, maybe if I knew this was going to happen, I would have come before the road work and tried to have something implemented at that time, but I had no idea, and I just assumed she was getting safely to and from school like she did the year prior. That's where I'm at, and I'm just very concerned and hope that something can be done.
I think, we don't have an answer for you right now. I think as you heard me speak before, I'm a firm believer in doing whatever we can, and I commend you to the fact that your daughter is walking to junior school and you don't live on Britton Street, that you really, it is great to see that happening, and I think we need to do whatever we can to make that safe. It's not an easy answer, but as we look at traffic calming and safe routes to school and other things, we need to look at that.
Absolutely, and I mean, the minute she steps foot onto Green Village Road, her back is against the traffic. There's nothing to show any sort of safety here. It's just dangerous the entire way. I mean, until she gets to Green, which would be the sidewalk up past the golf course.
Yep.
I've been in touch with the Madison Police Department, and Officer Longo was dispatched to my house the first day of school, and he drove the route and came back shaking his head. There's no way a
Yep.
child can walk this route. And I have 2 younger children that will eventually be in the same position. So as a parent, I can't give up. I will continue to do what I have to do, and I just wanted to.
Yeah, we'll make sure that stays on the Complete Streets Committee agenda, and,
Thank
okay,
you.
Thank you for taking your time. Anyone else wishing to be heard?
Well, just regarding, I mean, I know where Ms. Tully lives. Isn't there something we can do in the meantime? I mean, to me, the safety of a child is paramount, and, if the bus was eliminated, I mean, whose responsibility is it? If it becomes our responsibility, then, I mean, what are we going to do? We can't put sidewalks there because it's a county road. We have to figure something out immediately. I mean, can we, what do we do in a situation like this when we have a real mortal danger to children getting to and from school?
Can we do something like requesting the Board of Ed to reconsider?
Well, I mean,
At this point,
The thing what you have to do is there's a statute that deals with hazardous routes. Under 18A, there is, if you're in the primary schools, I think it's 2 miles or less, 2 miles or more, you have to be provided busing. High school, I don't know if it's high school or junior high and high school, it's 2.5 miles. The exception is hazardous routes, but there's a whole process for hazardous route evaluation in which the school and our police department will work and identify hazardous routes. So, for example, I'll give you an example. I represent East Brunswick. If your school is on the other side of Route 18, it's a hazardous route. You can be, a half a mile. But if you have to cross Route 18, it's deemed hazardous route. So, it's something that I think, it might be who of our police department, our traffic safety folks to work with the school and just go over what are the hazardous routes, and that's the process you'd go through. You've got, the one thing I can tell you from a school perspective is you have to have one of those criteria. It either has to have the mileage or a hazardous route. If you start providing busing to something that's not deemed a hazardous route, or it's not within the statutory frameworks of the mileage, you then become courtesy busing. And if you do courtesy busing, you have to courtesy busing for the non-publics as well. So that's a statutory mandate that's put out by the DEP.
So if we can
I
at
don't
least,
think we're talking about courtesy busing. I mean, Green Village Road,
What I would suggest
walking
you do
north
is
past
have-
the golf. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, there were a couple car accidents
Yeah,
there,
so
right?
what I
I
would
mean,
suggest you do is have the police department, I don't know who's replacing Sergeant.
Joe Longo?
Chad Ripka.
Chad Ripka.
Chad Ripka,
Have Chad Ripka reach out to the Board of Ed, Dr. Rossi, and EPA.
So Jim, if you could follow up with a letter that outlines this issue to the Police Department and to the Board of Education, and the Board of Ed President is in the room, so she's also heard this, and we will at least have them.
It's getting late to get into this,
yeah.
and I don't want to get into this, but I very much agree with what's been said. I mean, it seems to me it's beyond just one situation. We talk about safe streets, we've talked about having bike paths, we talk about sidewalks. I have a couple of dogs. I walk a lot in this town, and I wouldn't let my child walk that route. But there are lots of other routes
Right.
that I walk, and I wouldn't let my children walk those either.
especially if there's snow. Like, what do you
Yeah.
do if there's snow on
Yeah.
in the school?
I know, so I don't, it seems to me that the Board of Ed, together with the police, together with us, ought to somehow figure out how to address the situation, and it may well take representatives of each of those three bodies and meeting with Bob Vogel and discuss how much this will cost and how best to do it.
So we will
we do it fast, too? I mean,
Yeah, so we'll get that out, and we'll, so Ms. Tully is not left hanging. We will keep it in the loop as far as what progresses and what potential solutions come up. I see someone else that might want to be heard.
Not open for discussion.
We'll wait.
I'll let you know, I did send an email before the holidays about scheduling that meeting to look at our hazardous route policy, which hasn't been touched since 1994. We know it's a problem, but we can't just, until we look at them as a whole, we can't just start giving courtesy busing out.
Right. Because if you do courtesy busing, you're going to open up Pandora's box where every child who's going to Kent School or whatever, you'll be busing everyone. So there's a process.
Not talking about
statutory.
courtesy busing, yeah.
And because it involves safety and public safety in streets, the law mandates that, and I'm sure the board has a policy that talks about the 18A Title VI correspondence with 40A, and you work with the police department to get that done.
Yep, and I had sent the email out earlier, and I just, before the meeting in the hallway, cornered Joe Longo and Chad Ripka about getting that meeting set up as soon as possible.
Excellent, thank you. So we will move quickly on this. Anyone else wishing to be heard? Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting. And there are no ordinances for introduction, and so we are on the consent agenda resolutions.
Okay, consent agenda resolutions will be enacted with a single motion. Any resolution requiring expenditure is supported by a certification of availability of funds. Any resolution requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda. All resolutions will be reflected in full in the minutes.
Mr. Landry?
Mayor, I move consent agenda resolutions 34-2014 through R46-2014.
Second.
Discussion? Pat?
As I indicated earlier, I am going to be voting yes with a reservation on number 46. That is the settlement with FDU on the, their tax appeal. My personal feeling, and it's backed up by years of looking at this issue, is that the pilot money that's going to be coming from that settlement should be more equitably distributed amongst the various tax receivers in the town. I understand the state law requires that the borough provide 5% to the county, the balance. It can reserve for itself or however it wants to distribute it. So that's going to be my vote.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
There is no unfinished business. Approval of vouchers.
Okay, public safety, $51,251.28. Health and public assistance, $5,846.26. Public Works and Engineering, $378,017.69. Community Affairs, $3,357.69. Finance and Borough Clerk, $4,498,261.63. And Utilities, $310,079.76. Total is $5,246,814.31. That for speed.
Well done.
Not bad.
I have a motion to approve.
I am so moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Under new business, two items. One, I'd like to make the following appointments for Strategic Planning Committee chairs. We will be coming back with the actual committee members at a later date. Again, these are ad hoc committees, which they will complete their work in 2014, or if they don't, we will have to reappoint in 2015. But our goal is certainly to have it finished this year. And so these are the following chairs: for Capital, Bruce Galton; Utilities, Martin Barbado; Finance, Tom Bittinger; and Operations, Maureen Byrne. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
And I'd like to make the following appointments, requesting council approval for the Bylaws Review Committee. Again, this is just one task, and we'll come back, and then this committee will dissolve. Rob Catanello, Bob Landergan, and Carmela Vitale.
I move those names.
Second.
Discussion, roll call vote.
Mr. Catalinello?
Yes?
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
And Mr. Rowe.
I move that we adjourn.
I like that.
A lot more coverage.
We did?
For a while, there's
Oh, my God.
That'll be good. No,
Had to
or
be
maybe it
done.
was. Don't need it. Thank you.
Oh, all right, that's
You
perfect.
asleep by now?
All right. Works for me.